Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta at sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin. The support, especially during a loss or during the tough moments in the match, I think it really makes cushions the blow.
Manila Meltdown. Eala's shocking confession after devastating loss. The hip injury truth revealed. The scoreboard reads 6-4, 6-4, but those numbers tell you absolutely nothing about what really happened under the blazing lights of the Rizal Memorial Tennis Center last night. This wasn't just a tennis match. This was a national moment, a cultural earthquake, a collision of dreams and reality that left an entire country holding its breath and then exhaling in collective heartbreak. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, where we don't just report the score, we take you inside the storm, inside the pain, inside the shocking truth that everyone is talking about, but nobody truly understands. What you're about to hear isn't just about tennis. It's about sacrifice, about the crushing weight of expectation, about a 20-year-old warrior who stood on that court with a compromised body and an uncompromised spirit, and gave everything she had until there was nothing left to give. If you think you know what happened in Manila, I'm here to tell you that you've only scratched the surface. Because behind that stoic handshake at the net, behind that brave smile for the cameras, behind those 6,000 screaming fans who watched their princess fall, there's a story of physical agony, of mental warfare, of a confession so raw and honest that it sent shockwaves through the tennis world. We're talking about the hip injury that threatened to sideline her before she even stepped on court. We're talking about the pressure cooker atmosphere that would have crushed lesser players. We're talking about Camila Osorio's ruthless tactical masterclass that exploited every weakness, every moment of vulnerability, every grimace of pain. And most importantly, we're talking about what Eala said immediately after the match. Words that have been replayed thousands of times across social media, words that have sparked debate, admiration, and serious questions about her future. You need to stay locked in until the very end of this deep dive, because we're not holding anything back. We have the exclusive details on the extent of her hip injury. We have insider information about what's happening behind closed doors in her camp. We have breaking news about her next tournament appearance and whether she should even be playing at all. We have the tactical breakdown of how Osorio dismantled the home favorite. And we have the broader implications for Philippine tennis, for Asian representation on the WTA Tour, and for the future of one of the sport's brightest young stars. But before we dive into the drama, do me a favor. If you support Eala, if you believe in her journey, smash that like button right now. And if you want to stay ahead of every breaking story in tennis, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because Champions Tennisitics is your front row seat to all the action, all the controversy, all the truth. Let's rewind to understand how we got here, because context is everything. The Philippine Women's Open wasn't just another tournament on the calendar. This was historic. This was the first WTA 125 event ever held in the Philippines, and it existed for one reason and one reason only: Eala. Her rise through the ranks, her U.S. Open Junior Championship, her breakthrough into the top 50, all of it created the commercial viability for this tournament to exist. The sponsors came calling. The government threw its support behind it. The Tennis Federation saw an opportunity to capitalize on the Eala phenomenon. And for weeks leading up to the event, Manila was consumed by tennis fever in a way the city had never experienced before. Her face was everywhere. Giant billboards dominated the skyline. Local television ran special features about her journey. Radio shows debated her chances. Social media exploded with fan art, tribute videos, and predictions of glory. The narrative was already written before a single ball was struck. The prodigal daughter returns. The Rafael Nadal Academy graduate comes home to conquer. The girl who took her talents abroad to develop in Spain, who trained alongside the greatest clay court player in history, who absorbed every lesson from one of tennis's most demanding academies, finally gets her coronation moment on home soil. It was supposed to be perfect. It was supposed to be the stuff of sports movies. Local girl makes good, returns home, lifts trophy in front of adoring nation. Cue the inspirational music and fade to black. But real life doesn't follow scripts. and tennis is perhaps the cruelest sport when it comes to shattering expectations. The draw looked favorable on paper. Eala, seeded and ranked 49th in the world, was the highest-ranked player in the field. Her path to the final seemed navigable. But there were whispers, quiet murmurs that only those paying close attention could hear. Something was wrong. During her first-round match against Russia's Elena Kharieva earlier in the week, there had been a medical timeout. Cameras caught trainers heavily taping her right thigh. She won that match in straight sets, but those who watched carefully noticed a slight hitch in her movement, a momentary hesitation when pushing off for wide balls, a subtle but telling grimace after particularly long rallies. The official line from her camp was vague, calling it precautionary, describing it as minor discomfort from the rigorous training schedule. But anyone who knows tennis, anyone who understands the physical demands of the professional tour, knew that heavy strapping means something more serious than mere discomfort. By the time Thursday night arrived and the quarterfinal matchup against Camila Osorio was set, the injury concerns had become the elephant in the room that nobody wanted to acknowledge publicly. The stadium was packed to capacity. 6,000 fans, the largest crowd ever assembled for a tennis match in Philippine history, created an atmosphere that was equal parts electric and suffocating. The noise during warm-ups was deafening. Every time Eala emerged from the tunnel, the roar was thunderous. Chants of her name echoed off the walls. Filipino flags waved in every section. This wasn't just support. This was expectation. This was pressure. This was the weight of an entire nation's hopes condensed into one person, one match, one moment. Camila Osorio, ranked 84th in the world, walked into this cauldron knowing she was the villain in someone else's story. The Colombian is no stranger to hostile crowds, having competed across South America where passion for tennis runs deep and crowds can be merciless to visiting players. But this was different. This wasn't just loud, it was personal. Every point Osorio won was met with stunned silence. Every point Eala won triggered an eruption. The psychological challenge of maintaining focus and composure in that environment cannot be overstated. Lesser players would have crumbled, but Osorio isn't lesser. She's a grinder, a counterpuncher, a player built on mental toughness and tactical discipline. She came to Manila with a plan, and what unfolded over the next 90 minutes was a masterclass in exploiting weakness. The match began, and immediately you could sense something was off. Eala's movement, usually one of her greatest strengths, looked labored. That explosive first step, the ability to track down balls in the corners, the quick recovery back to the center of the court, all of it was just a fraction slower than normal. To the casual observer, it might have been imperceptible, but Osorio noticed. You could see it in her shot selection. She wasn't going for outright winners. She was moving Eala side to side, corner to corner, forcing her to push off that compromised hip over and over again. The Colombian employed heavy topspin to push Eala back behind the baseline, then followed with sharp angles that pulled her wide. It was death by 1,000 cuts, a tactical assassination executed with cold precision. The first set was a war of attrition. Eala was striking the ball beautifully when she had time to set up. Her lefty forehand, that weapon she's honed under the watchful eye of Nadal's coaching staff, was generating massive power and spin. When she could plant and unleash, the ball exploded off her racket. But tennis isn't played in a practice court where you hit perfect ball after perfect ball. It's played on the move, under pressure, with your body screaming at you to stop. And Eala's body was screaming. After every long rally, you could see her reach for that right hip area. The camera would zoom in and catch a flash of pain crossing her face before she quickly composed herself and returned to the baseline. The crowd tried to will her through it, their cheers reaching fever pitch every time she won a point, but energy from the stands can't heal damaged tissue. Osorio broke serve in the 7th game of the first set, a crucial moment that shifted the entire dynamic of the match. It came after a brutal baseline exchange, 17 shots of relentless ball striking, Eala defending brilliantly until she was forced to stretch wide for a forehand, and her return landed just long. The Colombian had been probing that spot all night, testing whether Eala could maintain her length on shots that required maximum extension and rotation through the hips. The answer was no. At 3-5 down, facing the prospect of losing the first set on home court, Eala showed the champion's mentality that got her this far. She dug in and held serve, keeping herself alive, refusing to go quietly. But Osorio was unmoved. Serving for the set at 5-4, she closed it out with clinical efficiency. 6-4. First blood to the visitor. The stadium, which had been a cauldron of noise, fell into an anxious murmur. Reality was setting in. This wasn't going according to script. The second set is where heroes are made or broken, and for a glorious stretch of games, it looked like we were watching the making of a legend. Eala came out with renewed fire, the kind of intensity that only comes from playing with your back against the wall in front of your home crowd. She raised her level, started taking the ball earlier, began dictating rather than defending. At 3-2 up in the second set, the stadium exploded with belief. This was the comeback. This was the moment where pain becomes irrelevant and will takes over. The noise reached levels that made it difficult to hear the chair umpire's calls. Fans were on their feet. The energy was intoxicating. For those few games, it felt inevitable. Eala would level the match, force a deciding set, and somehow, some way, find a way to win. But the body doesn't lie, and injuries don't care about narratives. Just as quickly as the momentum shifted in Eala's favor, the hip betrayed her again. You could see it happening in real time. After a particularly long rally that she won with a stunning forehand winner down the line, she immediately grabbed her side and bent over, struggling to catch her breath. The physiological cost of that single point, as spectacular as it was, had taken something out of her that she couldn't get back. Osorio, sensing the moment, pounced. She won the next 3 games, breaking Eala's serve and then holding her own twice to take a 5-3 lead. The Colombian was now serving for the match, 1 game away from the semifinals, 1 game away from ending the fairy tale. At 4-5, 30 love, it looked over. Osorio had triple match point. The crowd, still trying to believe, began chanting desperately. But Eala saved the first match point with a courageous second serve that Osorio couldn't handle. Then she saved another with a forehand winner that clipped the line. At deuce, she had fought off the immediate danger. The stadium roared its approval. Then came the pivotal moment. The moment that will be replayed and analyzed and second-guessed for months. Eala created 2 break points. 40-15. She was 2 points away from getting back on serve at 5-5. The crowd was absolutely delirious. This is what sport is about. This is why we watch. The seemingly impossible comeback was within reach. But Osorio, showing nerves of absolute steel, erased both break points. She hit a forehand winner to save one. She forced an error on the other. Back to deuce. Then advantage Osorio. Then match point again. And this time, there would be no escape. Eala's return sailed long. The match was over. 6-4, 6-4. Camila Osorio had won. The silence that followed was instant and absolute. It was the sound of collective heartbreak, the sound of dreams deferred, the sound of reality crashing into expectation. But what happened next is why Alex Eala is more than just a tennis player to the Filipino people. Most athletes in that situation would have rushed off court. They would have hidden in the locker room, processed their emotions in private, maybe given a brief, professional interview later after composing themselves. Not Eala. She walked to the net, shook Osorio's hand with genuine warmth and class. No hint of bitterness or resentment. Then she turned to face the crowd. She looked around the stadium, taking in the sight of 6,000 heartbroken fans who had given her everything they had. She didn't hang her head in shame. She didn't avoid eye contact. She stood there, chin up, and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile of gratitude, of acknowledgement, of shared pain. And then she took the microphone. Her voice was trembling. You could hear the emotion choking her words. This wasn't a prepared statement. This was raw, unfiltered truth. She said, "This isn't just about me. It's about Philippine women's tennis. I fought my hardest despite the hip pain, despite the immense pressure from the home crowd, and despite the unexpected result. I have no regrets whatsoever for giving it my all." Let that land for a moment. Despite the hip pain. She confirmed it. The injury was real. It was significant enough that she felt the need to mention it publicly. Despite the immense pressure, she acknowledged the weight of expectation, the burden of carrying a nation's hopes. And despite all of it, no regrets. Those 2 words are everything. No regrets means she left it all on the court. No regrets means she wouldn't have done anything differently. No regrets means that even in defeat, even in pain, even with tears in her eyes, she was at peace with how she competed. In the coming days and weeks, We'll be monitoring every development closely. Will she fly to Abu Dhabi or withdraw? Will she undergo an MRI to determine the extent of the hip damage? Will her team make structural changes to how they manage her schedule and obligations? Will there be a coaching change or adjustment to her training regimen? All of these questions will be answered soon, and when they are, Champions Tennisitics will be right here bringing you the exclusive details. What we know for certain is that the Manila chapter has closed, but the story of Eala is far from over. This was a painful lesson, a humbling experience, a moment of reckoning with the physical limits of the human body. But it was also a display of courage, of resilience, of the unbreakable spirit that separates good players from future champions. The tears she shed last night weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of frustration, of disappointment, of love for the sport and for the people who support her. They were human tears, the kind that remind us that athletes aren't machines or superheroes. They're people who bleed, who hurt, who struggle with the same doubts and fears we all face. And in that vulnerability, in that honest admission of pain and imperfection, Eala gave us something more valuable than a trophy. She gave us a reminder that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about how you stand back up when the whole world is watching and your body is screaming at you to quit and your heart is shattered into pieces. She stood up last night. She faced her fans. She spoke her truth. And in doing so, she proved that she's already a champion in the ways that matter most. So what do you think, champions? Was the hip injury the deciding factor, or was Osorio simply too good on the night? Should Eala take time off to fully heal or push through and compete in Abu Dhabi? How much responsibility do the tournament organizers bear for overloading her schedule? And where does she go from here? Drop your thoughts, your theories, your support, your criticism, everything in the comments below. This is a community, and your voice matters. We read every comment. We engage with every perspective, and we grow stronger together by having these conversations. If this deep dive gave you a different understanding of what really happened in Manila, if it made you think about the story behind the scoreline, then show some love by hitting that like button. It helps the algorithm push our content to more tennis fans who need to hear the real story, not just the sanitized version. And if you're not already subscribed to Champions Tennisitics, what are you waiting for? We're building the most informed, most passionate tennis community on the platform, and we want you to be part of it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a breaking story, a controversial take, or an exclusive update. This is Champions Tennisitics, where we don't just cover tennis, we live it, we breathe it, we analyze it, and we celebrate it in all its beautiful, brutal, heartbreaking glory. Eala will rise again. The hip will heal. The lessons will be learned. And when she's back on court, firing those lefty forehands and representing the Philippines with pride, we'll all be reminded why we fell in love with this incredible athlete in the first place. Until next time, stay passionate, stay curious, and keep your eyes on the ball.
I think it was an overall good week. Of course, disappointed about today. I definitely think I've had.
Alex, after a terrific year last year, how does it feel to be making your main draw debut at Melbourne?
It feels great. I'm super excited.
Time out. Can you give us an update on what you're feeling on your right leg, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, there's a bit of discomfort and Kamusta mga kapong Pinoy? Surprise! Excited na akong imbitahin kayong lahat na manood sa mga laban ko sa Mubadala Abu